guys, tonight I decided to do something different, and I've been watching Making a Murder on Netflix recently, and before the second series comes out, I thought it might be interesting to read you some facts about Making a Murder, that might have been left out of the series, or just some interesting facts about it. I just pulled these off the internet, so I hope you find them interesting. Okay, so the first fact. The project was inspired by a front page article in the New York Times. In 2005, Making a Murder co-creators Demos and Ricciardi were both film students at Columbia University when a front page story in the New York Times, titled Freed by DNA, Now Charged in New Crime, got their attention. I found it riveting and kept elbowing poor Moira, saying, "I cannot believe this," Ricciardi told BuzzFeed. The focus of that story was the backlash the Wisconsin Innocent Project was experiencing as a result of having been instrumental in freeing Stephen. Of course, it got deeper into the article. I realised there was an apparent conflict of interest between the county and him. As storytellers, they were immediately intrigued. The next point. The filmmakers didn't have an opinion on Stephen Avery's guilt or innocence. I don't know if I believe that. It certainly seemed to be biased in the direction of him being innocent. But the point says, the question of Stephen Avery's guilt or innocence wasn't what motivated the filmmakers. In fact, they told Vulture that it wasn't a question they even considered. When we first started, we didn't have an opinion as to his guilt or innocence. What drew us to this story was Stephen's status as an accused. In this country, people being accused of heinous crimes is unfortunately not that rare an event. But the fact that Stephen had been wronged by the system and was in the process of trying to reform the system and to hold people accountable just raised so many questions. Could someone who had these motivations possibly do something like this? Or did somebody trying to change the system see the system come back down on top of them? Either way, there was a story. The next point. Before she was a filmmaker, Laura Ricciardi was a lawyer. That's interesting. The filmmakers moved from New York to Wisconsin to immerse themselves in the subject. Wow. The series was produced over a 10-year period, from 2005 until 2015. It was Stephen Avery who convinced his family to participate. Avery's past brushes with the law were what made him an interesting subject to the filmmakers. They shot nearly 700 hours of footage. Demos and Ricciardi shot over 500 hours of interviews and visuals, then recorded another 180 at trials throughout the 10 years of production. The filmmakers believed the state of Wisconsin wanted to bury the film. Demos and Ricciardi made their presence and their project known while they were in Wisconsin, which purportedly didn't sit well with the state. In 2006, the filmmakers were forced to hire a lawyer after the state of Wisconsin attempted to subpoena their footage. The state wanted any statements Stephen made, and statements by others who may have knowledge or claim to have knowledge about who was responsible for the death of Teresa Halbach. There are the next point, the staircase inspired the extended format. Though they originally envisioned the film as a documentary feature, the filmmakers quickly began to realise, with all the twists and turns happening in Avery's case, confining his story to a 2-hour running time was going to be difficult. And it wasn't until they saw the 2004 Sundance docuseries The Staircase that they realised a multi-part documentary was a possibility. Both PBS and HBO passed on the project. I can imagine they were sorry. Prosecutor Ken Kratz isn't a fan of the series. Not surprised to hear that. He claimed the filmmakers left out several pieces of key evidence, but they refute his claim. In response, they say, "We tried to choose what we thought was Kratz's strongest evidence pointing towards Stephen's guilt. The things he talked about at his press conferences, the things that were really damning towards Stephen, that's what we put in." Avery may never see the documentary. Despite his cooperation, Avery may never get a chance to see Making a Murder for himself. He has no access to Netflix streaming in prison, and DVDs are prohibited. Wow. It may be the directorial debut of both filmmakers, but that doesn't make them inexperienced. Over the past 10 years, they made the equivalent of 5 feature films in Making a Murder. Okay, let me see. So that's all of those facts. So I'm just going to move on to some other ones on a different site. And it's just taking a second to load. Okay, so I'm not going to read any repeats. Intentionally, anyway. Okay, so this one, the first point says Avery had been suspected of sexual assault prior to 1985. During the first episode of the series, Avery recounts a situation where he forced his female cousin to pull over to the side of the road and threatened her with an unloaded gun. In the context presented by Avery himself, the scenario was more or less dismissed as an immature scare tactic. However, there may be more to it. According to the Appleton Post-Crescent, 2 women, one of whom was the cousin, came forward and claimed they were allegedly raped by Avery. The cousin's mother filed an affidavit claiming Avery allegedly told her daughter he would kill her if she spoke up. Thus, she claimed she never filed a written report. The other woman made a similar statement about allegedly being raped, but also never filed a report. Because both were statements and not evidence, a case was not pursued. In the series, Avery denies harming his cousin. The next point, Avery's sister-in-law claimed he was physically abusive. The year before, Avery was wrongfully sent to prison for the rape of Penny Bjornston. Manitowoc County Police records show that they received a call concerning family trouble in 1984 at Avery's home, where he lived with his wife Laurie. According to the department records, Laurie made no statements against Avery. In 1983, Laurie's sister filed a report and wrote that Avery beat up on his wife, and she left home and went to a domestic violence centre. Again, a case against Avery was not pursued. Bussell has reached out to Avery's defence lawyer for comment. Avery's fiancée, Jody, also claimed he was abusive. Their wedding plans were cut short when Avery was tried and convicted for murder. In the series, she appears to be immensely supportive of Avery, but claimed in a recent HLN interview that she was being threatened by him and that he had already beaten her before. Avery allegedly wrote threatening letters to his first wife. This fact is technically included in the series but is brushed over. The next point I've heard a few times since the series. Avery Star 67 dialed Halbach's phone on the day she was murdered. During the series, we learned that there were 3 missed calls on her phone the day she was murdered. Each was reportedly from Avery, prosecutors said, and 2 were dialed using the Star 67 feature, which blocks a caller's number. Well, I don't see how that's hugely relevant. Halbach had allegedly said she was uncomfortable visiting the Avery residence. While the jury was away from the courtroom, Auto Trader receptionist Dawn Pliska told a judge that Halbach had told her that Avery answered the door in just a towel once. She added that though the 2 joked about it, Halbach said she was uncomfortable, according to the Chippewa Herald. Manitowoc County Circuit Judge Patrick Willis didn't allow Halbach's co-worker to testify because the date of the incident was unknown and insufficient details were provided regarding Halbach's meeting with Avery. Jurors in the Avery case allegedly had connections with law enforcement. According to Milwaukee's Journal Sentinel, 2 of the jurors in Avery's trial were related to members of the county sheriff's department. One was married to a clerk, and the other had a son who worked in the department. Connection to law enforcement is traditionally considered a reason to turn down a juror and disallow them from being involved in the case. So, I've read that one. The next point is it difficult to plant DNA evidence. The verdict against Stephen Avery relied heavily upon the DNA evidence associated with the crime scene, but the series never addresses the plausibility of planting DNA evidence that doesn't come in the form of blood. Viewers are given adequate reason to believe that Avery's blood could have been placed at the scene of the crime after his attorneys presented open vials of his blood, but investigators also found DNA from Avery's sweat, and that wasn't explained much. Whether or not it's possible to plant sweat remains to be seen, though scientists have claimed that DNA evidence can be fabricated. Let me see. So that was all of those facts. So I'm just seeing if there's anything interesting in another site that we haven't already covered, but my internet is slow to load for some reason. A lot of these I've read already. Okay. That's probably it, I would think. So I know it's not hugely relaxing topic, but hopefully if you're still awake at this stage, maybe you find it interesting or entertaining. And we'll see what the next series produces.